If you're a gun owner, this story should get your attention. Nebraska Senate candidate Dan Osborn is facing criticism after expressing support for policies that include a gun registry, red flag logs, and reoccurring mental evaluations for owners of some of America's most commonly owned firearms. And for many Second Amendment supporters, these aren't minor policy disagreements. They represent a fundamental shift in the relationship between citizens and government. So let's break it down. First, let's talk about the gun registry. As you know, a registry does not target criminals. It targets people who follow the law. Criminals don't typically register stolen firearms, they don't fill out paperwork, and they don't comply with regulations in the first place. Instead, a registry creates a government database of law-abiding gun owners. Many gun rights advocates also point to historical examples around the world where firearm registration was later used as a stepping stone toward confiscation or prohibition. Whether you agree with that concern or not, it explains why so many Americans view firearm registration as a serious threat to privacy and constitutional rights. Now, let's discuss the red flag laws. At first glance, the concept sounds pretty reasonable. If someone is genuinely dangerous, shouldn't authorities intervene? The concern raised by critics isn't about stopping dangerous individuals. It's about due process. In many red flag systems, firearms can be seized before the accused has an opportunity to defend themselves in court. That means a constitutional right can be potentially suspended based on allegations before a person has been convicted of a crime. Opponents argue that every constitutional right deserves robust due process protections. Imagine applying that standard to free speech or voting rights or protections against unreasonable searches. The question becomes, should fundamental rights be removed first and challenged later? Then there's the proposal of the reoccurring mental evaluations. According to reports, Osborn has discussed requiring mental evaluations every 5 years for owners of commonly owned firearms. And this raises several questions. Who decides what qualifies someone as mentally fit? Well, I don't trust the government. For one, what standards would be used? Who pays for the evaluations? I guarantee you it will be the taxpayers. And how long would this process take? And most importantly, would this requirement apply to any other constitutional right? Because if you give them an inch, we know they will take a mile. Americans don't undergo psychological screenings for voting, which I don't think would be a bad idea. They don't undergo mental evaluations before attending church. They don't undergo government-approved assessments before speaking publicly. Critics argue that requiring recurring mental evaluations for exercising a constitutional right effectively transforms that right into a government-issued privilege. And then there's also the practical issue. Millions of Americans, we own firearms. Creating a system that requires periodic evaluations could place enormous burdens on healthcare providers, create lengthy delays, and potentially prevent law-abiding citizens from exercising their right because of bureaucracy rather than actual misconduct. And then there's the broader constitutional question. The Supreme Court's decisions in recent years have repeatedly emphasized that the Second Amendment protects an individual's rights. Supporters of gun rights argue that proposals like registries should be viewed through the same lens as restrictions on any other constitutional liberty. Now, the central debate isn't simply about firearms. It's about who gets to decide when constitutional rights can be exercised and under what conditions. Now, supporters of these policies argue they're intended to improve public safety and reduce violence. But opponents counter that constitutional rights are most vulnerable when governments claim that restrictions are necessary for public safety. And that's why these proposals are generating such strong reactions among gun owners across the country. So, what do you think? Should government maintain a registry of gun owners? Should constitutional rights be suspended through red flag proceedings? And should Americans be required to pass recurring mental evaluations to exercise a constitutional right? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, we will see you next time.